Bonjour, merci.
Good morning, and thank you for being here. I am Maria Gonzalez. I'm from the European Commission. I work in DG Cooperation for Development in the Unit for Central Africa. Welcome to this press conference. We have Mr. Tabuna and Mr. Michel with us for this discussion. So just briefly, we'll hear from the two colleagues, but I'll just say first that the EU supports diversity in Central Africa. This has been a partnership that has been going on for many years with Central Africa and also with the Central African Economic Community countries. We have protected areas in the different regions. We support diversity and development surrounding the protected areas and protection of local peoples and human rights. This is a historic and holistic program. We're in phase 6 at the moment. We have 80.5 million euros of EU funding on top of NGO support. We also have training which goes on in the regional Eraif school in Kinshasa, post-university education, postgraduate and master and doctorate training takes place there, and eco-guard training. This is very important. It's very important to have well-trained eco-guards that are familiar with international standards and human rights. The third part is an information system. We gather information on forests and pits in Central Africa. We gather information on those regions. So with that, I think that suffices by means of introduction. And I'll give the floor now to Mr. Tabuna.
Monsieur Michel.
Merci.
Thank you. Well, perhaps just a brief introduction to the operator aspect. In terms of African parks, we get a subsidy from COFACIS on Garamba, Chinko, and we coordinate the protected area of Biliware and Odzala in the Republic of Congo. And perhaps in terms of Chad, on the Laouk Reserve in Chad, I teach in the integrated management of tropical forests, and we have a strong support and synergy with ECOFAC 6. What's important for us is the regional aspect. As an operator, African Parks works in several countries, and as you know, the threat on biodiversity and major smuggling operations and the rebel groups, they don't recognize borders. So if we want to meet that type of threat, it's a good idea to put information together and training and come up with the different responses at the regional level and not just at the national level. The same is true for the social and economic development. In particular, if I look at transhumance, which is high up on the agenda, as you know, following the Jamena conference, the question of transhumance going from Chad to the DRC, going through the Central African Republic, Cameroon, and this requires a regional response. We can't manage transhumance solely on the national plan, and African Parks has some positive results that I can explain to those who are interested, in particular in Central Africa and in Garamba. In terms of our human capital, it's important to have a regional view of this as well, and to have a vision which allows the managers that we train to have mobility between the different countries where we're present. And Again, we'd like to thank the CAC and the European Union for this ECOFAC support. It's very important at the regional level.
Well, first of all, I will just say a few words to mark this event, and then I will provide some information on top of what my two colleagues have said, just to complete the picture about this program. So, representatives of embassies of the member states of the CEAC in the Kingdom of Belgium, the representative of DevCo, the representative of African Parks, the representative of Andemis, the lady from the press, the gentleman from communication, guests. On behalf of the CAC and the ambassador, I would like to sincerely thank our member states for their work, and my words of thanks go also to the European Union and Andemis, who have supported the Secretariat of CEAC in order to make the ECOFACSIS program more visible. The financing convention for this program between CEAC and the European Commission was signed on the 7th of April 2007 for 4 years, which takes us up to 2022, 2023 at the latest. The first years of ECOFAC, so that's from 1992, concentrated on preservation of natural capital. But ECOFAC 6 should be a transfer of, to conservation, which builds on ECOFAC 5. This transition is illustrated by the green economy system in Central Africa. This system is a vision, an approach, a model and a tool for establishing a link between environmental protection, the fight against climate change, and economic development, improvement of living conditions for the population, and job creation. We believe that here we are transforming natural capital into productive capital so that the green economy can take part in an effective way in diversification of the economy in our member states at a time where, as you know, the region's economy was concentrating mainly on minerals and oil, and has been in a difficult situation since 2014. ECOFAC 6 falls within the framework of implementation of heads of state decisions on development and promoting the green economy in Central Africa, initiated by the Secretary General of the Community from 2010. One of these decisions is Decision 5 CEAC and 16 of the 25th of May 2015, which is on the sectoral programs of the green economy within the economy program for the protected areas. In ECOFAC 6, we have an example for the promotion of protected areas and promotion of a green economy based on indigenous and sustainable and inclusive local economy and the fight against climate change. With funding of 80.5 million euros, as Maria said. This program covers 7 member states, DRC, Cameroon, Congo, RCA, Sultana, Chad, and Gabon. We congratulate our member states and the European Union for their commitment to the green economy, an ideal way towards diversification of the economy of our states, creation of jobs, and improving the living conditions of the populations, particularly the populations living close to the protected areas. The Secretary-General of the Community will be organising in cooperation with the government of Central African Republic and the minister in charge of crafts, small local economy industries, with the support of the operators and the media of our member states. We believe that this program that will be launched shortly will enable us to reach the objectives fixed by our member states on the green economy. So, as I was saying earlier on, I have a number of pieces of information to add. So the financing convention was signed on the 7th of April 2017. Between then and now, commitments have been made with partners, operators in the field, including African parks. So based on those commitments, I can say that we have a rate of 64% of spending, and the real rate of spending is 24%. Now, the CEAC is leading in an institutional fashion, and the Ministry for the Economy is ensuring organisation in the field. And from an operational point of view, I can say that we have operators that have signed subsidy conventions with different EU delegations for the implementation of their activities. States have a role to play in the follow-up committees at national level and also at local level. And as far as the CEAC is concerned, it has a role to play in environmental diplomacy. That's the dialogue between the environmental protection and the green economy. The CEAC, with Landermis's technical support, is also to play a role in passing the message to the different states for greater promotion, for development and promotion of the green economy. From an environmental point of view, we can say that the project has targeted 18 protected areas in Cameroon, the Faroun National Park, the Jaf, DRC, Bilingoué, for Gabon, Mayumba, La Yupe, for Congo, Brazzaville, Odala, and others, the Bo National Park as well. So, representatives of embassies of the member states of the CEAC, guests, lady from the press. This is the information I wish to provide to you on the programme, where Central Africa and its member states are counting very much on this programme to ensure this transition that we initiated in 2012 with the European Union and the African Development Bank, the transition towards a preservation economy. In other words, what is the economic and social value that we can add to the ecological value of the protected areas in Central Africa? Thank you very much.
Voilà, donc nous...
S'il y a des questions, si vous avez des renseignements, demandez.
Bonjour.
Good morning. First of all, I would like to thank the Secretary-General of CSE and DevCo for this initiative of holding this event on the ECOFAC 6 program, which, as you said, is now quite a historic program. It's been working for several years now with the members of the CAC on preserving our natural resources. During your presentations, you stressed your ambition in this phase of the program to highlight the economy of the concept of preservation, and not just preservation in and of itself, as was the case before. With that in mind, I would like to point out that there is one accident we've seen on the way with the increase in poaching, which is a real threat and an obstacle to your ambitions. With respect to that, in Yaoundé in 2013, on the first days of this threat, which we saw in the Sahel region of the sub-region, the CAC organized a regional workshop, following which an extremely urgent emergency plan was adopted involving security issues, diplomatic issues, environmental aspects. My first question is, where are we in implementing this fight against poaching plan? Because this really represents a threat to your ambitions. And secondly, I'd like to react to what Mr. Tabuna said regarding environmental diplomacy. To wonder about what sort of role can the member states' diplomatic missions represent, in particular in Brussels, with respect to the European institutions who are working on this project. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for what you've said. I have two questions. The previous speaker already asked my question, but I'll ask it in a different way, because apart from poaching, in DRC, there's another phenomenon which affects us greatly and has a negative impact on all our activities, interventions, all the support that the country receives. There have been several ECOFACs, 5 and 6, and I'm wondering about the added value of that additional tranche. And is there anything particular to say on the legal texts that we can make use of in the sub-region to combat transhumance?
Bonjour, merci. Moi, j'ai.
Good morning. I have 3 questions. This is one for the gentleman from the CAC. I'd like to know where are we with regard to the operationalization of the green economy. I'm from Cameroon, so with that in particular. And what sort of organic framework does the CAC have in mind to look at the navigation operation? And third question, how interested are the member states in this system, and what's the difference between this and the Fund for the Green Economy in Central Africa, or the Blue Fund in the Congo Basin? Thank you.
Les questions. Je vais traiter.
OK. Okay. I'll try to answer some of those concerns, and then I'll give the floor to Mr. Tabuna. So on poaching, the main challenge for nature conservation, well, I just wanted to say that the EU is tackling that issue with the program that we're co-financing with the CAC and ECOFAC. It's really in the field that we need to have controls, checks, train the guards, etc. But you also need the institutional support to accompany that. And then you need the international level. The EU has adopted an action plan against this kind of crime. This kind of crime has become the fourth largest illegal trafficking in the world. You've got China as an importing country. You've got measures being taken in the customs, border checks, checking illegal entries. And then you've got local poaching, which is something different. That is about the population looking for food, and the response to that is really economic development, to offer alternatives to these people. So that's our intervention, that's our strategy. But I'll give the floor to Mr. Tabuna. I know the CAC is really tackling this at the moment, but I just wanted to say a few words by means of introduction.
Well, I'd like to thank the colleagues and guests, representatives of member states who've submitted questions. Thank you very much indeed. I'll take them one by one. As far as the extreme emergency plan against poaching, as you said, this started in 2013. It's at the heart of the challenge we are facing, in particular protecting biodiversity with respect to large mammals. Elephants are mentioned more and more, but today we have other species, such as the pangolin, which are a subject of significant trafficking in the region. If in 2013 we thought about this, we didn't really have a specific program behind on financing of the program, but we took advantage of some of the program we had within the ECOFAC 5 to initiate the work in the field, in particular in the Sahel area of the sub-region, with the EUCN and others, and they concentrated on the different aspects you mentioned, on issues linked to training and awareness raising. We also took advantage of a program with the African Development Bank to carry on with these two aspects, the awareness and the training. Now, together with the European Union in the ECOFAC 5 program, in the 11th EDF, we're working on a program to fight against trafficking. And within that, we are working on other aspects, in particular the diplomatic side of things, which can allow us to turn to other regional groups to fight against the poachers that are armed, which we're seeing more and more. So we've also got a UN organization involved, which is currently located in Libreville, which is working on the legal framework, because that's their expertise. Aside from those initiatives with our partners within the CAC, in the next few years, together with the African Development Bank, we're working on a new program on the fight against poaching, which goes beyond what's already being done, and trying to take advantage of what we've achieved through ECOFAC 5, what we're going to be doing with ECOFAC 6, and what we've done with the African Development Bank. With the African Development Bank, we added another dimension, which is eco-security, because, since you mentioned the security aspects, we realized that faced with these poachers armed with weapons of war, we're not up to it. That's why in Yaoundé, the ministers in charge of agriculture, the environment, and defense got together and thought that we needed to set up eco-security units. And this is what we'll be working on, the feasibility studies of these units, how they can work and how they can integrate into the chain in the fight against illegal trafficking in natural resources and against poaching. If we're talking about eco-security, it's because we want to go beyond poaching. It's not just a question of security for the animal species or biodiversity, but also security for natural resources, because we realized that those who are illegally exploiting natural mining resources are often the same who are trafficking in the poached animals. As you said, we felt that this was a problem that required multi-sectoral approach. That's why I thought about diplomacy, environmental diplomacy, and there's a significant role for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs there, because we feel that although we haven't yet started our actions in the field, but in our thinking with the states, we recognize the role that the Ministries of Foreign Affairs need to play in this. I talked about the IGAD, the Regional Economic Community, where the poachers come from. We need to go into the consumer countries. We need to go into the transit countries. That's the work for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So for the CAC, there's a significant role for the Foreign Affairs and the embassies, in particular the embassies here, based in Brussels, to work with the European Union, who is supporting us in our fight against poaching. And generally speaking, the crimes against natural resources, so eco-security. Mrs. Pascaline, transhumance and poaching. I think my neighbour will touch on the question of transhumance and migrations. What sort of change do we see compared to ECOFAC 5? If you've been following ECOFAC 5 for several years, what we've changed is, first of all, there's an institutional change which took place in ECOFAC 5, if we compare this with 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that was the regional approach. The CAC, who hadn't been involved in the previous ECOFACs, has played a role in ECOFAC 5, and from the ecological point of view, before ECOFAC 5, we only dealt with the tropical side of things. Now, as from ECOFAC 5, we're looking at the southern and the northern parts. So Chad is now part of the ECOFAC. And in terms of themes, instead of just preservation, because we're working within the framework of sustainable development, we worked on the ecological pillar. Now we're working on the others in a more in-depth manner to deal with issues linked to the economic side of things and the social aspects. And we're going further by integrating all of this under the heading of the green economy, which, as I said, this is an opportunity for us to make a link between preservation, conservation, and the issues linked to creating jobs around protected areas, developing economic activities around the protected areas. And it's on this concept of protected areas defined by the states that we've located ECOFAC 6 program. The protected areas go further. It's a question of setting up true sustainable land management around the protected areas, a truly sustainable economy, so that can protect the protected areas. Because if around the protected areas you don't have any sort of economic activities that can interest the population, then people are always going to be willing to cooperate, if we can call it that, with the poachers. So that's a fundamental difference. And the other aspect is this link to the security issues and the human rights aspects that we mentioned. So we're going a bit further now and fitting in to the framework of the decisions made by the heads of state. So we're working now under the aegis of the decisions taken by the heads of state in terms of the green economy. That's the first example. We have other examples, of course, to reconcile what we're doing with the European Union, and in order to respond to the expectations of our peoples, in particular with the European Development Bank. In the second phase of our projects at START, we'll go further, and what we can't do with the DevCo programs, we'll be doing with the African Development Bank. For the lady, with respect to the green economy, well, we might be able to come back to this at another occasion to go really into detail on this, but as I said, from 2010 to 2015, we've thought about how we could have a model in Central Africa which would mean that we would respect our international commitments regarding environmental protection, fight against climate change, and provide a response to the expectations of our members in terms of diversification of economy and the expectations of our people, who feel that they've made a lot of efforts to sign up to conservation. Now we also need to meet their needs. As you've seen, there are more and more conflicts between humans and wild animals, because the herds of elephants have increased because the populations have agreed to the conservation. But behind that, you see there's a conflict. The elephants go in and destroy the crops of the people. So that causes a lot of problems in terms of social aspects and political and economic. In terms of operationalization, we started this already with our partners within the ECOFAC program. We also have civil society involved, because we have the organizations on civil society working on the green economy. We have an expert group on climate change, which is also working on this. As you know, the CAC is being reformed, and to deal with this very broad dossier, the ministers are currently in Libreville to work on adopting the organizational framework to increase the department on natural resources and economy. We've developed one program per state, so each state will be a leader in one of the aspects of the green economy. And the difference between the FAVAC and the Blue Fund is that we set up the FAVAC, the green economy, with Central Africa, with the EU, as the Blue Fund, which is developed, which is concentrating on the waters and the oceans for the Congo region. That's an interregional cooperation program between the CAC and the communities of the Eastern Africa. Michel.
Oui, je réponds très vite à la question.
Yes, I'll just answer that question on transhumance. I mean, really, the answer should be very long, but I'll make it brief. Well, we have a regional approach. Now, why is transhumance moving further and further south? What are the real reasons? Well, it's climate change, insecurity, the explosion of the herds, 78 million to 113 million in 5 years in Chad. We think that this needs to be seen in a sectoral way. Economic profitability. I mean, it's very profitable. Access to pasturage and water is free, and it's an activity which is extremely profitable. Now, the idea is that we could go to the starting point and regulate the numbers of the herds and regulate transhumance through taxation. And we get good results because the owners are prepared to pay for secure corridors and secure access. They'll pay $10 to $20 per cow. And in a protected area, that's 10 million euros coming in per year. So regulation needs to be based on the economic approach and regulation of the herds as a starting point, because it's a financial resource rather before it's a resource in terms of meat or dairy. I have to leave the room, but we can carry on this discussion at a later stage.